Hello and happy Tuesday. Trying to get everything started here. I'm trying it without headphones today. See how it goes. But it is Tuesday, March 31st. This is the last day of March. We're heading into April. But it was Tuesday. Yeah. Hey, well, thank you so much for showing up, Vicky. I really appreciate it. It has been, I don't know if you can hear, I'm trying it without the headphones today, but I can hear my neighbor's dog barking. And it is what it is, right? Like, I can't do anything about it. But so hopefully he gets whatever he wants and we'll be a little quiet soon. But we're going to talk about something really fun today. I'm super excited about this one. So did you know that oceans, they cover over 70% of the Earth's surface, but we've actually only explored like 10% of them. And that's not even at the bottom. Like the really way bottom where like the pressure is super crazy. It can crush metal. I think we all remember Ocean Gate. And then sound actually travels for thousands of miles. It is insane. And the ocean, it's not just vast, it's super unsettling. It hides stuff that doesn't make any sense. Things we can hear, but we can't see. And then things we can see, but we can't explain. And then, of course, all of the souls of people who have vanished without a trace in its waters. So super creepy. So good evening, everyone. My name is Megan, and this is Disturbingly Interesting. It's a show where we talk about all things strange, unusual, probably a little questionable, but always interesting and disturbing. And tonight, we are submerging ourselves into some of the most disturbing things ever found in the ocean. So everything from unexplained sounds to unexplainable objects, and even the most bizarre unsolved mystery of all time. I'm super excited for it. Because the more we learn about the sea and the ocean, the more it seems to remind us kind of just how much we still don't know about it. Like, why does the Earth have a heartbeat? It's super crazy. But before we get started, speaking of strange and crazy oceans and seas, I ran into an article yesterday that I thought was very interesting and very fitting for our show today. So I'm just going to show you. This is a Smithsonian Magazine.com, but there are sharks in the Bahamas that are testing positive for drugs, including cocaine and painkillers, which is absolutely crazy and sad, super sad. So this came out yesterday, and saying that sharks in the Bahamas are ingesting drugs, including cocaine, caffeine, and painkillers. According to this study that was published February in the Journal of Environmental Pollution, scientists identified blood contamination in about 1/3 of all the tested animals, finding that further highlighting how humans are harming the marine environments, which is really, really sad. The article goes on to talk about this was done at a very remote island in the Bahamas, and that the team collected blood samples from animals and then released them. And after that, they examined the specimens for about 20 different drugs, spanning classes including antibiotics, antidepressants, and opioids. Analysis revealed that 28 sharks across 3 species, Caribbean reef shark, nurse sharks, and lemon sharks, had detectable levels of at least one of 4 drugs: cocaine, caffeine, and the painkillers diclofenac, probably, and acetaminophen, which is so sad. Like, it's not funny, but you almost have to laugh. Like, what the hell? But anyway, I thought that was very interesting, so I wanted to bring that up for our show on weird things in the ocean. So first, we're going to talk about unidentified underwater sounds. So, like, what if I told you that the ocean was making sounds that we couldn't identify, that are super, super creepy? So the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, they use a lot of high-tech equipment to monitor the oceans. And they monitor it for all kinds of stuff, right? So like temperature, the salinity of it, current sea levels, even the acidity of the ocean. And they use hydrophones, or these sound traps that are placed in these patterns along the ocean floor. And they're listening for stuff. And they hear things like natural sounds like earthquakes, and marine life. But then they also hear man-made sounds, and they listen for these man-made sounds like ships, underwater exploration like oil drilling, and military sonar, and then underwater construction. So why do they do this? Why do they listen for these sounds? Because a lot of the marine life need it to, amongst other things, communicate and find their food. So it's really, really very important. And the sound travels very quickly and really far underwater, just because of how dense it is. So the low frequency sounds can travel further than anything on land. So, and because NOAA is constantly listening for stuff under the water, they have heard some pretty cool and really crazy stuff under there. And to be fair, the sounds, if you don't know what they are and you just hear them, they sound very, very terrifying at first. Most of them are eventually explained. Stuff like the upsweep. So it was recorded in 1991, and it consists of a long train of narrow band, like upsweeping sounds. And it happens for several seconds in duration each. Another one is the whistle. There's whistling underwater. It was recorded in 1997 in the Eastern Pacific, and it is consistent with underwater volcanic activity. But it's strange, but it is natural. There are some currently unidentified sounds that NOAA has. They're sounds that we have an idea of what it could be. When I say we, I'm not a scientist. We, like NOAA, the scientists, they have an idea of what it could be, but not really super sure. And the first one, I love it so much. Bioducks. Ducks, like quacking ducks. Bioducks. So in 1982, researchers using those hydrophones, they were towing the hydrophones behind their boat, and they recorded these short quacking sounds. They were able to determine that the sounds were biological or from an animal, but they couldn't determine what species or what the quacks meant. So they do believe it was obviously some form of communication, but they have no idea. Another sound is the slowdown. So it's recorded in 1997 off the Antarctic Peninsula, and it's called the slowdown because the frequency of the sound slowly descends for like 10 seconds, and it is really, really creepy to listen to. Another one that is also very creepy to listen to, it was recorded in 1997 as well, is the sea train. It is a sound, and it sounds exactly like a frickin' train whistle. It is super crazy. We are going to listen to some of them. I found some sound samples so we can take a listen to it, but it is just crazy. The most famous of these unidentified sounds, though, is something called the bloop. And in the late 90s, NOAA scientists, they were listening underwater, specifically for volcanic activity, when they heard this sound that they could not explain. And its frequency, it rises really quick and then falls really quick. So like a bloop. And at the time, scientists, they believed that this was some kind of an animal sound, but they had no idea what it was because it was way louder than any other known animal at the time. So there's a lot of theories and best guesses, obviously, of what these are. And it's a lot of unknown marine species or volcanic or tectonic activity, ice movement, or in the case of the bloop, they believe it is iceberg calving, which is when the pieces of the iceberg fall off, or ice quakes that's causing the bloop sound. But the creepy part about it is at the time, scientists really did believe that it was like an animal. So I was able to find some samples that I think you got to see. Here anyway. So this is what the upsweep sounds like. And I got to put my headphones back on so I can hear it too. Could you imagine? Could you imagine hearing that while you're underwater? The other one is the whistle. That one is just super, I don't know. All of these to me would be super creepy. This one is the bloop. So this is the one that it sounds like a bloop. So kind of just like somebody dropping something into water, which would make sense of why they think it is an iceberg or calving. But it is really, like I said, for a long time, they had no idea what that was. This one is the slowdown. So this is the one that is super creepy. And it was like just slowly descended in frequency for about 10 seconds. And it is, I would have to say, probably one of the creepiest things I've heard as far as sounds underwater. That is so creepy. It feels like something you would hear in a horror movie. Okay, this is the last one we're going to listen to because I think this one is super cool. Although it is creepy, but also very cool, is the sea train. So this is the one that sounds exactly like a train whistle. So creepy. Okay, so those were the sounds, and I'll stay on land. Thank you. Same. If I already didn't have a fear of open water, I would now. That is super creepy. So the official explanation for all of this is natural causes. Hey, Kelly, welcome. We are talking about some of the creepiest stuff that they have found in the ocean. We just went through a bunch of known and unknown sounds. Very, very, very disturbing. And we also talked about cocaine sharks. So I'm sorry if you missed that part. But it is an article that just came out yesterday of a study that was done in February in the Bahamas where they tested a bunch of sharks who tested positive for caffeine, cocaine, and opioids, I believe it was. Which I felt was fitting for this disturbing underwater mystery stuff. So the official explanation for the sounds is natural causes, right? Again, it's like the ice waves, animals. But some sounds truly are a mystery, like the Earth's heartbeat. So in 1960, geologist Jack Oliver discovered these rhythmic pulses that were coming from the deep sea in the northern Pacific. It was happening every 26 seconds, and it has continued to be detected by both land and sea equipment for over 60 years now. The cause is still debated, but the best guess is that it is underwater waves that are like crashing against sea floor formations. Which I guess it could be. I don't know. It's very strange. So we have sounds that we can't explain. We can't see. But what about something we could actually see? Kelly, first of all, who and why test for coke in sharks? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure who funded this. It also doesn't really say how it got there, which is another really interesting part. And I'm sure it's, shit we put there, humans threw in the water, whatever. But it's also, they didn't address how it got there. How did the sharks get caffeine and cocaine in their system? We'll never know. It's a mystery. Okay, so about some of the creepy stuff we can actually see. This leads us into our next one, which in 2011, a Swedish treasure hunting team found something at the bottom of the Baltic Sea that does not look natural at all. The group was part of a team called Ocean X, and they are a deep sea exploration company that salvages lost treasures from historical shipwrecks. So they're treasure hunters. It is a real job. And that makes me sad because I want to be a treasure hunter. But anyway, they're in the northern part of the Baltic Sea, and their sonar picked up on this super strange object on the sea floor. It was 300 feet below them, and it was circular in structure. It was about 200 feet wide, and it had a flat top with sharp edges. And no shit, it looks just like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars. And it's sitting at the end of what looks like this 1,000-foot long track, or like a skid mark, where it might have like crashed into the sea and skidded into position. The crew from the Ocean X team said that when they got their ship closer to the object, their equipment started to malfunction when they were right above it. The electronics went dead. There was these really strange interfaces. But when they moved away from this thing, the ship started to work again. So it is super creepy. If you have not seen it, and I do have a picture of it. So this is the original sonar image. So you can see the disc here with this weird indent here. And then this is the track. Right. 100% it was aliens. It's totally aliens. It's a UFO. In my opinion, allegedly, it's a UFO. But so this is what they found on their sonar. And this is a picture from their website, which I'm going to guess is an enhancement or AI. But just to give a better idea of what it looks like. And it's strange. Very, very weird. And they've been back a couple of times. And they really don't have much about it now, which is kind of strange. It was kind of a big deal for a while, and then they stopped talking about it. But there's a lot of different theories on what this thing could be. My number one I have on here is UFO. It's a UFO crash. But it could be a meteor or an asteroid, some ancient structure that's under there, potentially even some secret military object. A lot of people question whether or not the Ocean X team was maybe embellishing a smidge for the attention. But either way, it's there. The official explanation for it is it's a formation of different types of granites and gneisses, which starts with a G, G-N-E-I, gneisses, and sandstone, which are all native to the area. So that's all formations that are native to the area, or different types of granites that are native to the area. But the strange thing is they also found a piece of hardened lava, which is not native to the area. And the best guess is experts believe that it could have been deposited by glaciers at some point. But the explanations of what this thing could be are still highly debated among the experts. But the one thing they all agree on is that its shape is very, very strange for a natural formation. So sometimes, unlike the Baltic Sea anomaly, ocean mysteries are hidden below the surface. But sometimes they happen right out in the open. Such is the case of the Mary Celeste. So the story of the Mary Celeste is crazy. So on November 7th, 1872, Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, and their 2-year-old daughter, and a crew of 7 men set sail on the Mary Celeste, which was a British-American brigantine, and they set sail from New York City, and they were heading to Genoa, Italy. 1 month later, the crew of a ship called the De Gracia spotted this ship like aimlessly drifting in the Atlantic. When the crew boarded that wandering ship, they were immediately confused because nobody was on board, but everything looked normal. So the cargo was untouched. They were carrying a shipment of denatured alcohol. All the personal belongings were there. Food was still on the table. A lifeboat was missing, and all 10 of the people on board were gone. So Captain Briggs, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and the 7 crew. In 1873, the British government launched a formal investigation into what happened aboard the Mary Celeste. They interviewed witnesses, they examined the ship, and they came up with a couple of different theories, like mutiny, a pirate attack, potentially even a sea monster. And the most likely explanation was that it was probably from alcohol fumes. So the vapors from that denatured alcohol cargo may have caused the crew to be fearful there was an explosion or could be an explosion, leading them to abandon the ship temporarily in the lifeboat. But then something went horribly wrong and they got detached somehow and they drifted off. But at the end of all of it, their official conclusion was essentially, we don't know. We don't know what happened to them. We have no idea. But whatever it was that happened, it made the captain, his wife, and the crew and their daughter believe that staying on the ship would have been a worse fate than cramming themselves into a lifeboat and heading out into the ocean. So creepy. One of the creepiest and also one of my favorite ghost ship stories is of the Mary Celeste. So, yeah, Vicky, it did look like, so the Baltic Sea anomaly, it looks like the Millennium Falcon. Like the first time I saw it was, I don't know, probably a decade ago. So way before AI. And that was the first thing everybody said was it looked like the Millennium Falcon. And like was trying to find some pictures of it today to show you guys. And I wanted it to be like from these people's website because the amount of crap out there right now is just crazy. But yeah, those are the original sonar images. And the damn thing looked like the Millennium Falcon. Okay, so if you think that ships disappearing is disturbing, then what about planes disappearing? So this one, we're going to talk about the Bermuda Triangle, which, is probably one of the most infamous pieces of the ocean, mysterious pieces of the ocean in the world, areas of the ocean, of the world. And for decades, people believed that there was something was there that was taking ships and taking planes. But we are going to talk about a specific missing plane, actually a group of them called Flight 19. So on December 5th, 1945, 5 Navy bomber planes called TBM Avengers took off from a naval air station in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, on a routine training mission over the Atlantic. Their objective was simple. They were going to fly east to their targeted destination and then drop bombs. Because why not? When they were done bombing the area, they were then going to fly back to Fort Lauderdale, and the 5 planes were going to fly back in this triangular or V formation. So the lead plane in the middle and then 2 off to the side. The weather that day was clear. The conditions were normal. The flight leader, his name was Lieutenant Charles C. Taylor. He was an experienced Navy pilot, had extensive wartime flying experience. And after the first part of the exercise, so after they've taken off from the airbase, they're out there, they've dropped their bombs, Taylor reported back to the base that his compass had failed and that he believed the formation was somewhere over the Florida Keys. They radioed back to him and said, no, you're not over the Florida Keys. And it wasn't a huge deal. Compasses fail all the time. And there were 5 of them there. So like if one compass failed, there's 5 other ones. But then another transmission comes through. And this time it's different. It's another pilot. And they're saying, we don't know where west is. Everything looks wrong. Other pilots from the group start chiming in. They're all confused. Some think that they are over the Florida Keys. Others think that they're far out into the Atlantic. They start arguing over the radio, and no one can really agree on what's happening or where they are. And then it gets worse because everything goes silent. So when the Navy lost contact with the planes, they launched one of the largest search and rescue operations in Navy history. There was hundreds of planes, dozens of ships, and they scanned thousands of square miles looking for anything, whether it's like the wreckage, looking for life rafts, bodies, an oil slick from the plane. They were looking for anything. But they didn't find anything. They couldn't find anything. And it gets worse. It's even more bizarre. Because in that rescue, or search and rescue attempt, the Navy sends out a PBM-5 Mariner plane to help aid in the search. So it's a much larger plane to help aid in the search. But crazily enough, that plane goes missing too. And it's never seen again. But that's not the end. It gets crazier. So in 1991, a treasure hunting expedition, because remember, treasure hunting is a real job. In 1991, a treasure hunting expedition off the coast of Florida, led by Graham Hawkes, found a wreckage of planes on the floor. The closer they looked, they saw that it was 5 Avenger planes sitting in a triangle or V formation at the bottom of the ocean. Except this wreckage was actually from a different flight that was lost at sea in 1943, so 2 years before Flight 19 went missing. That's creepy. So over the years, people have tried to explain what happened. The main theories being a navigation error, that Taylor had misidentified the islands, the compass malfunction, which led to a bunch of disorientation. You know, when you're flying over the ocean and there's no landmarks or anything, it can be very disorientating. Weather changes or freak storms, something could have happened, and fuel exhaustion. That was another transmission that came through right before everything went silent. It was Lieutenant Taylor to the rest of the group that says when the last plane gets below 10 gallons of fuel, we will all ditch into the ocean. We're all going to go together unless we see land. And then everything stopped. So there are more extreme theories because this is the Bermuda Triangle. So stuff like maybe magnetic anomalies, methane gas eruptions, time distortions, or something just completely not natural. So the official explanation is that Lieutenant Taylor became disoriented and ended up leading the group in the wrong direction. They ran out of fuel and they crashed into the ocean. But here's what makes this so unsettling or so disturbingly interesting, in addition to all the other stuff, is that, again, these were not amateur pilots. These were trained pilots and they were led by an experienced instructor. They were flying on a routine mission on a clear day, and yet somehow they became lost with one compass that was broken. Like, not all the compasses were broken, just one. And they couldn't tell which direction was west. Vicky, it's all weird. How did they crash and still in the V formation? I don't know. It is crazy. The pilots from that crash, though, that one that was in 1943, I believe they lived, or some of them lived. I don't know if all of them lived, but I believe I read that some of them had lived. But that's still insane. Like, they lost their planes in the ocean in a V formation, and they were Avengers that were almost identical to the ones that went missing. So when you put all that stuff together, along with all the other stuff that we talked about, so you got sounds with no sources, objects we can't explain, and disappearances with no trace, it kind of leaves you with the question, like, What is happening there? And there's tons. Like, this video could have gone on, like, I think we're at a half an hour right now. This could have gone on for hours with the amount of just weird, crazy shit in the ocean. But what is it? Like, what's down there? It's the largest unexplored place on Earth. We literally know more about space than we do about the bottom of the ocean. And I feel like every once in a while it reminds us of that we don't really know shit about it. There was another story I heard. I don't know how true it is. I heard it on social media, so take it with a grain of salt. But I believe that there was a group of scientists in Australia that tagged a shark, a female great white shark, and then let it go do its thing, and they were going to track it. And I believe it was like a couple months later, the tag for this shark, or the tracking tag, washed up onto shore. And when they retrieved the tag and they reviewed the data, it looked like the shark, the last couple days of its life, was just living its good life, cruising along. And then all of a sudden just shoots down to the bottom of the ocean. Like, rapid descent down to the bottom of the ocean. And the tag had temperature readings, like it could read the temperature. And it stayed at a warmer temperature than it should have for the entirety of its time down there. So the theory is it was like megalodon, right? Like, what's big enough to eat a great white shark and then like drag it all the way down to the bottom of the ocean. So that is super crazy, because you don't know what's down there. It is. I've also heard stories about divers. So there's underwater welders and different underwater diving teams. One of them, I believe it was on Mr. Ballin. He was telling a story about a guy that was down in it's pitch black. You can't see anything other than what you're working on, but he could feel stuff, like huge things swimming behind him. But he's like, you can't look, you can't pay attention. You can't pay attention to it. You just have to keep on your job, because, there's no way. You couldn't pay me enough to do it. You could not pay me enough to do it. Where is Mulder and Scully when you need them? For real. Oh my God. I loved The X-Files. It was one of my favorite shows ever. I wish it would come back. Actually, maybe not. Unless it has Mulder and Scully in it. I don't know that I want it to. But I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think happens in the ocean? Do you think it's all natural? Do you think that there's stuff down there that we've not seen before? I mean, we've seen some of the crazy photos that they've taken of what they have seen in the super deep. Some of that stuff we know is down there, and it is super scary. Thoroughly disturbed now. Awesome. That makes me happy. I don't know if it makes you happy, but it makes me happy. I watch it all the time. It's on Pluto. X-Files is on Pluto TV. Oh, wow. I'm going to have to check that out. God, that was a great show. You know what was another really good show that was on, like, very briefly? Grimm. Do you guys ever watch Grimm? It was essentially based off of, or, supposedly, like, the bloodline of the Brothers Grimm. And is a guy that can see, cryptids and supernatural stuff. And he is on the police force. I know. I figured you might have, Kelly. But that was a really good show, too. But that ended up not going anywhere either. But all right, you guys. Thank you so much for coming. Let me know what you think is at the bottom of the ocean. Do you think it's all natural? Do you think there's something creepy down there? Do you think Megalodon is down there? Somebody corrected me on that. They're like, there's no way that Megalodon could be alive. And I'm like, I know, but it's fun to think. It has its own channel. All right, I'm gonna have to check that out. All right. Also, if you guys have any disturbingly interesting mysteries that you want me to cover, let me know. I might actually do a video just on the Flight 19 mystery, because there's so much more to it. But let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good rest of your day, and hope to see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.